Okay. Next thing I want to do is just bring up the agenda and make sure it's okay with everybody. So I had thought we'd do three things. I thought we'd spend maybe 10, 15 minutes talking a little bit about how we could go about sharing Growing Young with the leaders at Advent as well as the congregation. And some of that has already started, but I thought we might talk a little bit about that. Spend the bulk of our time talking about chapter 7, which was Be the Best Neighbors. And we'll use that discussion aid that I put together. And then we'll wrap it up by talking about action items and how we're doing there, which I think we're doing very well. And I want to thank everybody who's involved in following up on some of them. So thank you. But are there things beyond these three items that any of you feel we should talk about?
Maybe it'll fall within agenda, maybe the last agenda item, but how we communicate, like what we're doing about this, what about this is important for the call committee to understand and know. I mean, I think, I realize Sarah's on it, but she's not been on this, just to get some sort of deep understanding from this group to the call committee. And maybe we can talk about that again later, but just, I almost think we need to have a interactive, like bring that group into a meeting here with us. So.
Okay, that's a good thought. Now that we have a call committee named, and do we have any intersection between this group and that group?
No.
I think the only one, the closest would be Sarah.
Yeah.
So I can, and her being the young representative anyway, I think that it would be wise for her to have an understanding of what the goal of this committee is, but that's the only intersection I can think of.
Yep, okay, and I think this is Wendy coming back again. But we'll be sure to talk about that soon. Thank you, that's a good idea. Any other topics beyond these three that maybe we should talk about? Okie dokie. So the general topic here for getting us warmed up is to talk a little bit about sharing Growing Young. And I guess one example of that is with the call committee, but with Advent leaders and the congregation. One thing that I didn't know when I put the agenda together was that the Temple Talk was going to be used in this week's service. That happened. So thank you for weaving that into the service, Pastor. Thank you. The other thing that I thought about is many times when you're trying to introduce change, one thing that's helpful is to think about that change. And the template that I offered is one that takes a look at kind of status quo, where are we, as well as what the benefits of the change might be, and maybe what some of the risks associated with the change might be. And so I offer that. I'm not going to push hard on this, but I'm only going to offer that I think I have found something like that helpful when we've been introducing change in a business setting. And so I'll leave it at that and we can talk about that. But then the key thing here is what other ideas might we have for what to do? And one Sue's already implied, which is maybe we need to get a brief meeting together with the call committee sometime soon and just talk with them a little bit about what we're doing, what some of the key concepts are, like maybe the 6 that we're running through from the book. But let me take a step back from talking here and then listen. Any reactions to, first of all, the Temple Talk?
It's good.
Yeah, I liked it. I mean, it's what we saw, right? I mean, it was the polished version of what we saw before. And I thought yeah, it was good.
Yep, I haven't heard anything beyond the feedback from this group. I don't know, has anyone that's together with us today heard anything about it?
Mm.
Yeah, it's a little bit early days, I guess. I mean, I think talking about this and communicating this, one of the things that I was a little unhappy with after I put that small version of the 6 core commitments in the single page is I doubt many people could really read that. So one of the things that we can think about, and I think we've even talked a little bit about this in the past, that we might have ongoing communications, and maybe others on this committee could help with a series of Temple Talks, maybe focused on those 6 or so different core commitments that we're running through. What do you think about that?
I think we need some type of ongoing thing.
Yeah.
Not sure what it is, though. I almost think before we even do that, we need to get everybody on board, excuse me,
Right.
because, everybody probably who filled out a survey of any sort was like, we need more young people, we need a pastor that can get us young people. We need young people. So everybody wants it, but this requires a bit of work and a bit of action and a bit of changing how we do what we do. And I think we need some sort of platform to have, and it's got to be interactive. How many in here want to see XYZ, more young people at church? Every hand's going to go up. How many in here, are willing to do this or that? I think there needs to be commitment on the part of the congregation somehow, and I don't know how, but that gets us beyond talking about it and wanting it. I don't have the answer for that.
Yeah. I feel like a good place to start would be on the committee level, because the committees are the ones who generate the events and the projects and the ministries, hopefully, listening to the congregation members, right? But they're the ones who are organizing that sort of stuff. And so I feel like maybe, what if we were to rotate through the committees, and every month in a newsletter, maybe we have a growing young section in the newsletter, and every month a different committee talks about what growing young means to them, what they thought about since their last publication, about how they've, discussed growing young and incorporating younger members into the events that they're planning, what their plans are to do that. I feel like perhaps a little homework and accountability would be helpful, because we can talk about it and everyone thinks it's a great idea, but until you actually need to produce something and somebody's waiting for that, it can get lost and pushed. And before you realize it's 6 months before you've actually really done anything about it. But you know what I mean?
Yep.
Yeah.
Julie, do you know how fully staffed we are with advocates? Do we have that across all committees?
I'm not sure. That's a great question. We did not talk about it we didn't talk about that specifically at our last council meeting. I have incorporated into the template notes, asking the question, how can we grow young as a council today? And so, but I didn't directly address each individual committee member. So that would be something for me to follow up with next time, and perhaps have a conversation with the committee liaisons at that meeting and say, this is what our idea is. How how do you guys feel about that?
Well, if we were to follow up with each of the different committees, as you suggest, Joy, let's maybe just talk a little bit about that. Because I guess my sense is somebody maybe from this group might need to help them a little bit. I'm not sure that left to their own devices, unless I misunderstood your suggestion, that that would be as fruitful as maybe having one of us attend one of the upcoming committee meetings. That might also help us flesh out the advocate. We could talk a little bit about the growing young. We could do the Q&A that Sue started us down. How many of you think we need more young people, whatever, and go down that path? But do you have any other thoughts, or does anyone else have any other thoughts on how that might work well?
I do. The whole notion of a temple talk, it does not excite me. I don't want to be talked at. It just, but I understand what you're talking about. What you're saying is addressing the congregation as a whole, or even committees. But I don't think we need any more explainers, because except for maybe a couple of bullet points, we've been explained, and we do explain all the time. What we need is illustrations, stories, experiences. In the recovery programs, the 12-step programs, there's kind of an expectation that you will not try to teach anyone or tell anyone anything, but you speak out of your experience, strength, and hope. And that brings forth a story. If you look at the book that we're reading, they begin each chapter with a story, and that engages you. I think we need to tell stories, a narrative approach to addressing the concept of growing young. And that's either a story out of your own experience, or a story out of the book, or a story out of the general experience of having youth in the congregation. You know, the classic thing, moving on from Sue's, hey, who wants youth in the congregation? Sure. And what if that youth suggests something that you really don't like? We're going to just dispense of that. In my own experience, I had a youth at council. We were doing a project out in back of the church, and they were going to put some pachysandra on the hillside. And they wanted to make sure the pachysandra would take hold. So they planned on spraying it with pesticides so that the pachysandra would grow and no weeds would grow. And she persuaded the council not to use chemicals on our property, and that we do that naturally, and if necessary, have weeding parties. It took a little while, but this high schooler got us all thinking about the environment. And that was not pleasant for some, but she stuck to her guns. And I think, and so what are the consequences of growing young? We may do things differently. Okay, I'll stop right there, except to say, if we're going to continue to get the story out, it's got to be a story.
Okay.
I mean, one of the things I notice in the book is their stories always seem to be about some type of youth or young person who already has a sense of, like, you know, faith acting in their lives or something, and you know, we did start out here with, well, okay, who are the youth? And in part, I think we need to go back to look at that, because we didn't really do anything with, okay, now that we know who they are, we still don't see them, obviously, no, you don't see anybody because COVID, but who,
So I think we did reach out to, if it's a small reach out, but it was for lectors,
yeah.
online lectors. I think that was the first pass we took.
Mhm.
The list we had started with was rather lengthy, as you might remember.
Right,
I think among us and some other folks, maybe Worship and Music, we boiled it down to people we really knew and had been seen in the recent past.
right.
And then from them, I think Worship and Music or George had reached out to them for lecturing. I realize it's a small reach, but it was a start.
Yeah,
And I was very pleased that we saw Zachary actually do it.
I was
Yeah.
asked to have a kind of an engagement with our catechumens, and that was just when they stopped meeting. So I was going to contact Zach Cook and get into that conversation, but getting a hold of Zach Cook is a challenge, and I don't even know if they're meeting at this point. So.
There.
But yes, once we have some kind of context to do that, I'll be happy to do that. And I think we did this is another piece of this. I think we did this in this group early on. Did we ask each other, or was this on the synod level, that where was it in your life, you on the screen here, you adults,
Mhm.
that gave you permission to, as a youth, if necessary, if you actually did have permission as a youth to be engaged in the church, because that's a story that really needs to be told, and we can learn from it, and we can also try to make those opportunities for others as well. And that's nothing works like a story from your own heart.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, yeah, it was such a different time then,
But something happened.
Yeah. Yep.
And for me, it came down to an adult who took me seriously. So, and I think if we help people do that with our youth, take them seriously, not just patronize them as the future. You're the future of the church. No. You're the present of the church. You're part of what's going on here.
Yep. So we've
I
had,
gotta be quiet. I'm sorry.
no, this is all good. And we've had a couple of, I think, excellent suggestions. One is maybe to engage through the committees. A second is to focus on narratives rather than explaining stories. So two good suggestions there. And yes.
George, I'd like to make one comment. This is something Sue Wagner mentioned a few meetings ago, and it really stuck with me. I'll just give an example. It would be for the social ministry committee, where they came to divide up the gifts that they had collected for Christmas gifts to Bethany and Safe Berks. And Sue had mentioned, like, probably some youth people would be interested in that, but often we meet during the daytime. And I really took that to heart. And the converse of that is, we could certainly schedule nights, weekends, holidays, whenever, if we had young people ready to serve, or we could contact them. So to me, it's like a little bit of a balancing act. We need the people, and then we can schedule them. And right now we schedule based on the people we have. So I've been really thinking about that a lot, Sue, when you mentioned that a few meetings ago.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I mean, it is hard, because then I don't know, we just still have this time issue, because that's great. Okay, so let's do it at night. I have soccer, I have this, I have, like, but finding the time to get them
Yes.
is so hard.
Yep.
But
Well, then it turned out to be kismet that the day that they were moving the little pantry was a day that we didn't have school.
free.
So, yeah. So,
Yeah.
and that's something,
Mhm.
well, I'm going to talk about being a neighbor a little later.
Yeah.
And that worked out very well that we could include Max. He made the picture and now it's on the website.
Yeah.
So there you go. I guess what I was going to suggest is we did come up with a couple of good ideas here. And maybe we could reflect on those ideas as we talk about the chapter 7. And by the time we get to the action items, maybe we can crystallize what we might do and who might get involved in doing it to try and tie those two ideas together about further communication. Okay, so I guess what I'd suggest next is we start talking a little bit about chapter 7. And let me bring this up. Again, I thought maybe we just spend a minute talking about the results from our survey or whatever. Being the best neighbors was one of the categories or the core commitments where we did better. And I think, we are blessed here that we have a director of ministry that is helping us move along in being a good neighbor. And so you can see where we stand relative to the other 6 core commitments on the right, and on the left, you can see the different areas within the be the best neighbors where we did so well. And the one that is green there is making it a priority. And I think that's evident in a lot of the things that we're doing and the communication that is coming out through constant contact. That's from my perspective. What do the rest of you think about where we're at right now in terms of being the best neighbor before we get into the chapter? Any comments?
I mean, I think we have a few things in place, with the pantry, the little pantry, and all the donating we do of food and clothing and stuff. But I can't say that literally we engage with our neighbors so much.
Yeah.
Or at least I can't picture anything. And there was something from the meeting we attended, Pastor, the other night, where the one pastor was talking about like just being out there, how they set up the lemonade stand and or the whatever, and neighbor, that's how they like sort of connected with neighbors in the area and just talked to them and got an understanding of their needs. Like they were out there, they were seen. And that led me to thinking about a church that I sort of know of in Baltimore that my friend, actually my coworker, told me about. She lives in Baltimore and she's Jewish. She lives down the street from a Lutheran church that used to be like about 12 members, and now it's this thriving community-based center. And her experience was just being in the neighborhood, and this guy, like, she loves this guy, this pastor. She's Jewish and practicing, but she can't say enough great things about what he does and what their church does in their community. But they're out there, like she sees them outside the church, doing things. And so like putting those two things together, I don't see, I mean, I know we do stuff, but I don't see us, and I don't know if our community sees us being a force, in part because we don't do so much. But on the other hand, the Methodist Church has that all locked up, with their weekly dinners and whatnot. But I guess what I'm sort of like going around about to say is the things that struck me out of this chapter combined with the meeting we attended Thursday and all those thoughts roiling around, I think that's where like being the best neighbor, I think we can do better. And there might be some easy enough things and ways to do that. There was a church, and this will be the last thing I say. There's a church in Schaeferstown, and this is maybe 10 years ago or so, a Lutheran church, where they had a skateboard, not a skateboard park, but a day or certain days when youth were invited in to skateboard on their property. And, it was just a way to be seen and noticed and to be a good neighbor in the community, because kids are always told no skating, no skating, no skating. But to actually open up the parking lot or whatever it was to do that, that just kind of came to me as, again, a way to be seen. So I feel like there's like being seen that needs to happen to be a better neighbor. There we go.
So we
Our
have,
signage is pretty clear. We don't want
Yeah.
anybody in that lot.
Right.
And I always regret those signs, because now I realize there's always the attractive hazard, as the insurance company calls them, and there's liability issues and so on. But we have some macadam surfaces that could do well with a basketball net.
Yeah, and there's a guy in West Reading. He has a skate shop, and he's very active in the skate community in trying to get places for kids to skate and building a skate park, I think in West Reading. JT is his name. He has a holistic skate shop where my boys were frequent customers in their more skate active days. But if we wanted to even think about something like that, we could probably connect with him to help us make it happen, to attract people to the parking lot's open summers from, Tuesday, Thursday, 7 to 9, bring your skateboards and feel free,
Yeah.
okay,
I like that, actually.
go ahead.
I like that idea. I like the idea of opening up our space. I think it needs to be some way that we literally, all we do is provide some kind of, availability or opportunity, and just take a step back. Like, I don't think that we need to be actively handing out
Right.
pamphlets to everybody who shows up. I think that's what
Right.
we can do. I feel
Right.
like what we
Yep.
have to do is just be an opportunity and allow people to come, and and those nights, maybe we have like lemonade too, like
Yeah.
there's just something. It's just-
Or maybe we invite JT to come in and have like a skate fest. I know he has like ramps and stuff that he takes to different places. Invite him to come in one night in the summer and bring his equipment, and
Right.
he can do his evangelizing about all the things he's got in place. But then there we are, just being this welcoming thing in the community.
What else would be nice? To have a place where little kids could learn how to ride their bike.
Yeah.
Like, we could have an afternoon where it was just for people learning how to ride their bikes. You don't have to worry about
Yep.
big kids knocking you over, like, because that's a hard
Yeah,
place
that's a good
to.
idea. Those are
Yeah.
both good ideas, the skateboarding and the bikes. I like both of those.
Mhm.
And they're
When you
gentle.
said- When you said skating, I was thinking street hockey. And we've got that nice lot kind of corner to the church, which could be blocked off for
Yeah,
street hockey. I mean, that'd be fun.
I agree with that. Yeah.
There.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Because that's the one thing that we have that the Methodist Church doesn't, is macadam space. I mean, they have a couple little parking lots, but I think we have more of it.
It's how you use it. And one of the things that, and again, but this is not answering the question George asked. George asked us,
No.
what do we do? And this is the things we want to do. So I'll get to the things we want to do later, because I've got a couple of those.
George, there were two things that we did a few years back and we had to stop because of the pandemic. One was, and these are also kind of gentle, but one was sending postcards to our neighbors advertising Christmas Eve services. And we picked a mailing list of like 100 or 150 names in our immediate area to mail to. And the other thing was, I think this was must have been 2019, at Easter time, we went around with Easter baskets. The evangelism committee made up little Easter snack bags. We had a bookmark in there with Advent's hours, but there were snacks and I don't know, some things for the kids or something in there. And we just went around and whoever would answer the door, we handed them and we said, it's Easter a week early at Advent. Here's our Easter basket for you. And it was a nice thing to do with neighbors to get our presence known. I think Sue would say it's hard to know how either of those are effective. It might be a nice thing at the time, but you can't measure your results unless
No,
someone
but
comes and tells us later.
what I like about that and what I keep like swirling around in my head is we're getting outside the walls
Yes,
and we're not saying, come to our church and do this thing at our church. We are going out, and that's that, we're going out and, going out is like the skate or the bike thing. We're going out, we're having a bike safety thing, from AAA to come in and do that as part of the biking thing.
yeah.
We had a thing at Calvary Laureldale, which we started when I was there. It was called Halloween Hospitality. And we got out on the sidewalk with hot cider and some snacks, and also gave away little children's devotional books, and everybody got something. And the doors were open and the windows were open and the organist was inside playing Phantom of the Opera,
Ah,
and people could come in and experience the inside and hear and sit and listen. And it was so weird to see people sitting in the church in costume listening to the organ, but it was like people who never got inside that place came in to hear the organ.
yeah,
That's a cool
yeah.
idea.
And it
Yeah,
was
we
just-
could have John play all this scary organ stuff.
Well, that's
Gosh,
it, that's it,
I think John would love that.
Yeah, I think
the
so.
Risky Rite of Spring or something. But so yeah, that was just we called it Halloween Hospitality, and it was a ball. We had a great time, and I was thanked for families who thanked me not only because we had a good thing going on, but it kept some of we were being descended upon by groups of kids from the city who were just coming for the candy. And they skipped our whole block because they saw that we were doing something and they didn't want to be a part of that. So the parents thanked me. It kind of kept the thundering hordes, at bay. But that's those kind of things. But let's just to go back to the lemonade thing that Sue mentioned from the other night. What they were doing with their lemonade stand was, they were giving out free lemonade, but they were engaging the neighbors, in effect, asking them what's important here, what's important in your neighborhood, what's going on here, and learning how can we be good neighbors, because I think we can't assume what people want. What's important to our neighborhood, and I think it's something we probably don't realize, and until we ask. And so
That's right.
it's an invitation to learn about how we can be good neighbors.
Just one more thing, that if we were to do that on Halloween, honestly, to have a place where kids could use the bathroom would be really helpful. Like, because there are times when you are 5 blocks from your house, but it does not matter to a 4-year-old. So
No, it
that would be
doesn't.
a nice thing
Yeah.
to offer,
That's a great idea. The Halloween potty stop.
right?
We've talked a lot about how we could do a better job of maybe sharing our resources and getting out into the community to provide opportunities for the neighborhood to come together, and maybe for us to find out what maybe the neighborhood is most interested in.
There was a
So-
cool,
So I was going to say, we have a number of things, back to Sue's point, that we could do better. And I guess what I'll do here is just transition into some of the key points from Orange on the left, where the chapter was trying to make a point, or some ideas for what we could do action-wise on the right. And I know that Pastor has said he might be interested in sharing some of his thoughts on what we might be able to do better. And maybe he's already done some of that. But I think this would be a wonderful opportunity to do that, or to also highlight what struck you from the chapter as you read from our green book here.
One of the things that struck me was one of the churches, because they had space, invited in groups like nonprofits to be able to set up an office space
Yeah.
in there and lease office space. So that's like income as well, but lease office space so that they can do their mission, supported by us having the space. And, you know, I feel like we have space to do that. So
Yeah, I saw
that
that
struck me.
I thought that was an important item in the chapter. I felt the same way.
Yeah.
And one of the things that struck me in the chapter was, and I think I heard somebody say this a little bit earlier, that if we were successful in attracting more youth and young people, they might not agree with how we're doing certain things. And we might need to be ready to think about doing things differently. It's more about the engagement and the journey than it is about conclusions. There was something like that in this chapter. And so listening and conversing with folks were just as important as sharing doctrine, I'll say.
I have that highlighted. I think it's on page 246. It says more conversations, less conclusions.
Yeah, I highlighted that too.
Highlighted that.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I know that we frequently say that the pandemic is throwing us a curveball or whatever, or I frequently say that. But sooner or later, we're going to need to learn to live with COVID, and we'll get back to interacting a little bit more in person. And so many of these ideas that we've started to think about, I think, are things that we can start addressing and hopefully moving on.
Well, the good thing about if we do start to think about some ways and execute some ways that we interact with our neighbors outside of our building, that is a perfectly safe and acceptable thing to do right now.
Yeah.
Even though we're in the middle of all of this, you know, the minute it starts to warm up and everybody wants to use their new bike that they got for Christmas and finally the last of the snow is melted, right? Even if the numbers are still high, that's still an outside activity that we can. So I feel like of all of the chapters, perhaps this one leans a little more in our favor about the crappy season of our, you know, that we're living in right now.
One of the things I was going to mention was that a practice that has been suggested to me for a long time, even in seminary, they suggested we do, is that, and this would be the practice of a new pastor going into the community, but it could be anybody. And I sometimes it may be more effective that if it wasn't the pastor, just lay people, not just lay people, but lay people going out to the community in the houses in our neighborhood, knocking on the door, and in this case, asking people to come out and have a conversation when the weather's milder, with a structured interview that begins with questions like, what do you know about Advent Church? And find out what they think of us. You know, what have you heard about this church? And we're interested in knowing what you feel about us being your neighbor. If there was something that a church could do in your neighborhood, what would you like to see a church do? And so that's part of the lemonade conversation. But it's like not just waiting for them to come to you and a lemonade stand, but actually knocking on doors and being intentional about it. And I would certainly do that among the ones who can see Advent church from their front door. That would be, I think it'd be really instructive. And in fact, if you do it, if you decide to do it with a group of people, and again, this is not specifically growing young, but I think it is really, because you then start to understand what we can do. If you do it on the same day, then you come back to the church and you have a conversation. It's like, here's what we learned about our church. Did you know that they thought this about? I had no idea, because people have formed opinions about that brick building over there. And so that's kind of an interesting, and I would find that really fascinating. And maybe it is something you want to say for the pastor newbie, but I'm happy to help you in the spring.
I was going to say, we might want to just wait until it gets a little bit warmer than 6 degrees, but
I'm saying milder weather, please. Yes.
but beyond that, we could certainly go out in pairs and do that.
Yeah.
Another interesting thing that I read is if you're successful in increasing the diversity of your church, you want to also be a little bit at least aware of the fact that as a church increases diversity and gets closer to half of its congregational members representing one primary racial or ethnic group, the work of the church life and ministry gets harder. Well, that's where we're already at. We have a very similar racial and ethnic background, I think, at Advent. So I found that interesting, and also a caution to be concerned about that.
I want to just go back to my apologetic statement about that it wasn't really growing young, but I think it is. What I was saying, and what I think we're all saying, is that the attitude of a congregation will get older if you look inward. But if you look at a young person, they're looking out. They're looking what's going on out. And if I think the congregation, even though it may not get aged differently younger, it will become more youthful in terms of, people who don't act their age, and they're looking out. They want to see what's next. And if the congregation is in the attitude of what's next rather than what did we used to do, then I think that's a youthful perspective. Mm-hmm. And I think it's possible to grow young without even necessarily being chronologically young.
That's a good idea.
I'm not disposing of the kids. No. But I'm saying it's an attitude.
That's what I keep saying. Out.
What?
Out. Yeah. That's
a good Berks County term. Get off.
Yeah.
Get off.
George, there was one more thing in this chapter. It mentioned about getting out to local festivals, having a table, talk about your church, hand out a flyer for the clothing collection. You can drop some stuff off, letting people know that we're around and some of the things that we're doing in the coming months from that festival to engage, maybe create interest in our ministries. I thought that was a good idea. And that's an easy event. It's probably 1 or 2 days. It's an afternoon. You can get to join the table and just talk about us a little bit.
Did you have a festival in mind? Or one
I don't know. I don't really know all the local festivals. I couldn't speak to that, but
I thought you were suggesting maybe we create a bit of a festival.
No, the other way. I think West Reading has an arts festival, and we could sign up for a table, something like that.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, they do too. They do the arts festival, and they do the no, they do more than 2. Because there was the pretzel one, and there's the other one. There's one in fall, one in spring, and a couple others. I don't know
Well-
of any in West Lawn.
So one of the things that I saw here is, on the right-hand side, conduct a survey. I guess we did succeed in putting out the survey from the stewardship team. I saw that and I took that as well. I'm hopeful that we're getting a good response and that maybe then we can make use of some of the interests by thinking about maybe trying to partner folks, at least of the folks that are inside the walls. I recognize that's a little bit of a shift from getting out. But again, that's a chance for us to maybe strike some connections between the people that we do have.
I think that our survey would be useful, and because not everybody is an evangelist, there are, I'll be honest, the idea of going up to people's doors and knocking on their doors is not really exciting for me. And not that that's not a useful and a great tool, but not every person is built for every sort of evangelism. And so I would feel more comfortable and probably do better manning the lemonade table when kids are starting to learn how to ride their bikes. Like, that's me in a more comfortable setting. And so I feel like our survey would help connect people who do have like evangelism styles. That's the way that they think and that's what they want to do. There's some people who can't wait to go knock on doors. They wake up every day like, who can I go meet new today? And that's just not necessarily, it's not necessarily me. So
I think we have to retrain all our members to be interested in that, or many of our members. Let's put it that way.
You're going to make Joy nervous. Now, don't do that.
I need somebody to give out lemonade too. We need, as my beloved mother used to say, it takes all kinds to make a world. So
In anticipation of our meeting today, I decided to do a little exploring on the Wilson High School website because we are neighbors. And one of the things I discovered is that there's a whole section called, I don't know, it's under the administration. There's a section called Youth Homelessness McKinney-Vento Act. And at the bottom, there are resources listed. And it includes the Berks Coalition to End Homelessness, Family Promise. And I'm thinking, we have food ministry. If nothing else, a mention of our food pantry. Our little food pantry. It's not going to get overwhelmed by people, but I think somebody who is, because the school district needs to deal with homelessness. So how are we making that contribution as well? So this is one of those cases where, and we've already talked about this, showing up. If we show up on the school's website and offer our services, maybe we can be more visible in that way. Just a thought. How can we? I would do a little survey in the school district or the high school website and look at places where Advent Church could be included in resources or. And the other thing I was thinking about was that I looked at the athletics and most of the events are canceled or postponed at this point. But when you have a posting on a website, sometimes there's room for comments. And I think we need to start making comments. Great game, Advent Lutheran Church, or you can identify yourself as a member of the church, or I can be doing this too. But if we show, and that's the way we show up, not only at the stuff, but on the website as well. Just a thought.
So Pastor, were you suggesting that maybe a possible next step in that area might be for someone to reach out to the webmaster for the Wilson School District and to talk a little bit about some of the food ministries that we have and to say, would it make sense to get a listing on the
I
website?
think that'd be great. And I would, again, I think that be more effectively done by somebody who's a permanent member of the congregation as opposed to this designated guy who's traveling through. But you know, I would love to see that. And frankly, I don't know the ins and outs of the district like a parent would. And I'm thinking there are a couple of you that have had to deal with the district in a lot of different ways. But those are my thoughts. And what else besides the school district? Who else besides the school district is our neighbor? How are we being a neighbor to the fire company? And that occurs to me because of this fire that happened. Are they ready to call Advent Church? And that's a case where I probably should be in touch because I should be the point person. The pastor should be the point person there in a case of need, because West Lawn United Methodist was right there with the goods. And I don't mean to undercut West Lawn because we need to work together as Kathy is doing. And I think that's great. But who else is our neighbor? That's my shtick on neighbors.
Yeah, I think your comment about letting the local fire company know we're available to help is useful, because quite frankly, I had a great deal of trouble over many days reaching anyone at the Red Cross who would call me back. I mean, it took me over a week to get somebody to call me back. And it was only after I contacted the National Red Cross.
Oh.
And I think somebody listened to my
Legal.
story, intervened, called the local chapter, and then they called me. And again, they wouldn't give out any information for privacy, but at least they gave my name to the family. And that's how we reached them. But it took a long time. If the local fire company was aware that we're a church and we're interested in service, they kept our name and phone number or pastor's calling card, maybe we'd get contacted quicker or more often.
Yeah, and my guess is that depends upon where the chief goes to worship.
It might, but they know those people need more help than just clothes.
Mhm.
Yep. Well, one thing I want to do here is I know that most of the folks on this call have been very active in sharing their thoughts and ideas. I want to make sure that Wendy also has a chance to offer any comments that she might have about this particular chapter. Wendy, anything that you might like to share with the group based upon your taking a look at being the best neighbor?
No, it's basically what everybody's saying. I mean, we got to get out there and try to get our people to know we're here, but it's very hard, especially right now. But everybody has a lot of good ideas.
Yeah, I mean, I filled a page and a half here with ideas, which will, I'm sure, be supplemented by the recording that I'll listen to. But I guess one of the reflections I have is we talked a lot about things that we could do. I guess at some point in time, I'd like to shift gears into which of these ideas do we feel strongly enough about that we want to do something about, that either one of us, and I'm happy to take on a fair share or more than a fair share of actions based upon what we came up with here. I think it's important for us to say, okay, a lot of good ideas, but of those ideas, which are the ones that we might actually like to try and act on? And I'd welcome the chance to bring up my list if you think that would be helpful. We don't have to do that. I'm eager, though, to just try and say which of these things that we've talked about, from all the way back to we need to get in touch with the call committee and give them a little bit of an overview of growing young, perhaps not in an explanation kind of a way, through the Joy's idea to get in touch with the committees, and then all of the ideas that we've talked about with regard to getting out into the community. Which of these do we want to, I'll say commit, but that's a big word, commit to actually trying to do?
I think it would help to look at them, but, you know,
Are your notes digital, George, or are they handwritten?
No, well, my notes are handwritten here. I wasn't typing my notes. But I mean, the action list that we have, I'm happy to bring up and add any items that we want to try and commit to. And we can sign my name up to try and follow up initially on them. Or any one of you, if you're willing to do that too. It's just, I don't want to lose some of the good that we've talked about. I think it's important for us to try and say, which of these are we going to try and do?
well, so is there an intermediate step here, where we can look at the full list, but also consider, like, what are the small ones that are easy to knock off the top? For instance, contacting the fire company and saying, hey, when you have people who need help right away, you know, here's what we have set in place, you know, and then we backstage have social ministry set in place with blankets. They, you know, they've maybe collected a dozen blankets to keep on hand so that when the fire company calls or whoever calls, you know, we have somebody who can get to the church, pick up the blanket, take the blankets or whatever the need is. We have food pantry stuff already. So we contact the food people, the Ann or whoever does the food. And, you know, so that we take into account all the things that we already have either in place or partway in place so that we can just, you know, turn on a dime and make it work. Like that seems like a,
I
you
feel
know, a
like
sensible way to
perhaps-
start, you know,
Yeah.
where we already have things partway, you know, we have cereal loaded up in the thing waiting for the Wilson food pantry. But, you know, if it's the middle of the night and the family needs 3 boxes of cereal for the morning, we can just pull from our supply and,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? So where there's already some, and that we have the people who make the grief blankets or shawls or whatever, you know, those, I don't know if they're only for grief, if we turn that into comfort, you know, that goes a long way for somebody. So that's just a
And
thought.
also, I feel like it wouldn't be a bad idea. It wouldn't take up hardly any space to have, you know, we just had this experience. So we know from this family that gift cards to, what was it again, Kathy? It was,
They were looking for a few local restaurants, but also Sheetz and Wawa. in
And
right,
Target.
like,
And
if
Target.
we just,
And Target, also some stores like Target and Boscov's to buy household things or some clothing if they
Sure.
needed it.
I mean, we could just have a collection of gift cards in a place so that when we get a call, it's not a, let me send out to the congregation.
Right.
No.
Now
right,
it's, we
right.
immediately give them out and maybe then we pass, then the email to the congregation is because we've had this supply, we were able to give it out. We would love to replenish our stock. So if you want to give another, you know, Target gift card for the next time, I don't know.
And you know what,
That's-
we could
that's already in.
we could call it like gift card ministry because,
Well,
you know, how many of us have gift cards sitting around that we got for gifts like 2 years ago that we never use because we don't really like that restaurant or we don't really go to that place. Somebody else does, so we can just like put it in the gift card ministry and then it's there for somebody who needs it.
Okay,
Um,
and so Pastor, did you say that you would be willing to get in touch with the local fire company?
Yeah, and in fact, let me make a suggestion, a couple of suggestions here. One is that already I have talked about having gift cards in stock in the office. You know, just a portion of our petty cash, just buy, you know, couple $100 worth of gift cards there in the office, so I can just run and get them.
Mhm.
The other thing is that,
Excuse me, before we leave that one, is somebody gonna take some action so that we actually try and pull together that list or that group of gift cards so that we're ready for the next emergency?
well, let me finish my thought there.
Yeah,
If Kathy, who I think would be the one logical person, could get me a list of what we have to offer in the case of emergency, which would include gift cards, but also groceries of whatever kind. Um, uh, the prayer shawls, I'd really, that's kind of odd, but if we had some people offering blankets, that'd be great. But whatever we have, and maybe we hold back some of our donations of clothing and what have you, that I don't know. And then I would compose a letter based on your list to the chief of the department and say, here, here is what we're ready to do, because that's who's going to call. That's who's going to start making the contacts. And
I would just make sure that that is accurate, that the chief or
chief
the
would?
police or the fire are the ones who would call, or if they don't already have a system in place with social services.
well, okay, I'll contact the chief to find out. But yeah, but just to inform
Mhm.
what we have available. But as far as the, George wants to put a more of a definition on the gift cards. My intention would not so much be having, starting a gift card ministry, but rather have some generic gift cards for Giant, for, which could be used for a lot of the gasoline or groceries. And and Giant also does sandwiches if you need something, fast food kind of deal. But I think Giant is kind of your generic card that's going to help out and could be available in the office for me. But that's what I'm thinking. I think contributing cards that you don't use, that may work, but if you don't use them, they devalue.
No,
And
not anymore.
Not
Most
anymore,
do
okay.
not devalue anymore. That's
All right.
an old thing.
well, okay. I don't have any objection to that. I'm just not sure how often it'll be used. Because I haven't got a lot of calls for that kind of assistance at this point.
And Pastor, was your thought there that once we had the stock of gift cards that you and or someone else might hand them out as the need arises? And if so, who besides yourself?
Well,
I think, could we not put this as part of social ministry?
Yeah.
Put this under their committee or ask them to commandeer this?
generally
Thank
and that's fine. That would be good. In my experience, it's usually been the pastor out of confidentiality to distribute these things. If you want to extend it to someone else, I'm thinking possibly Becca or the person in the office as someone comes in need. But that's putting a lot of responsibility
I
on her.
think we have typically handled it through, like, some of that confidential stuff through, I'm pretty sure it's social ministry, because I know that when we would have a family from the Wilson School District, I only know this because my best friend is the Wilson person who would give the family to Advent. They dealt through the Krigler. It was Marilyn Kirkpatrick and Kelly Krigler would sort of coordinate that with Wilson. So, I mean, that might be your experience, Pastor. I think here at Advent, we've taken that, not off the pastor's shoulders, but given support to the pastor with others who can handle that in his stead.
Well, whatever you're comfortable with.
I think, Sue, I think you're right. I think Mark Rig also had a little bit of discretionary income if someone came by and was needing a sandwich or some food. I think there was a pastor's discretionary
Yeah,
that he
Yeah.
had available for
Right.
like an immediate thing. And then,
Yes.
like you said, the families to support them if they had a long going or a little more project
I'm just-
related.
I'm just saying this because then we could use the committee or
Yeah,
whoever
yeah,
on that committee
Yeah.
has done things like that in the past to,
yeah,
for the-
yeah, you're right.
but not,
right.
yeah, of course, if somebody comes in and needs something on the spot, pastor would be the obvious one. But if we were to start a gift card ministry or something like that, I feel like social ministry could handle that.
Okay. Did we say we wanted to have one of us get in touch with the call committee, newly formed call committee, and discuss growing young?
I would do that.
Let me-
Sue, are you volunteering to do that?
Yeah,
Good, because my thinking is the executive committee should meet with the call committee and talk about even more than that.
mhm.
And that should definitely, growing young
We'll
should
do
be
it as
definitely,
part of that conversation.
pardon me?
Are you saying we should do it as part of that conversation?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't want to labor the call committee with another meeting if they don't have to
Right.
have. Because God love them, this is a job that they're willing to do, but it can be overwhelming.
Mm.
But no, we definitely need to have growing young at the call committee informed of where we are and why this is so important.
Okay, we talked a lot about things that we could do getting outside of our walls. Are there any of those that we feel strongly enough or that are easy enough to do that we might actually want to try?
I mean, oh, go ahead.
I'm just thinking the things that we're suggesting, this isn't the right weather for us to mobilize and do something about it. I feel like a lot of those ideas are really great. The only, yeah, if only it would be nice if, like, if the France family lived next to the church as well, like, I would say it would be cool. Like, the snow is coming to like have a ministry where the kids can just go out and shovel on behalf of, Advent Lutheran Church, shoveling neighbors, like that could happen immediately. But if we're talking about using the parking lot for, a fun activity or something like that, I feel like that needs to be tabled for a couple months till the
Yeah.
weather cooperates. So
Well,
I
what
like
I
that
think-
idea. I don't want the idea to disappear, but I don't
Yeah.
know that we can execute that right now.
No,
Another
but
one-
we could start talking, like if we wanted to do the skate thing, we would
Mhm.
definitely need to start talking to the skate community, that JT for starters, now to get ready to do something in spring.
Well, I was wondering if we could integrate a few of the ideas by, first of all, getting with each of the different committees and maybe talking about some of these ideas about being out there in our community, being a good neighbor, and encouraging the committees also to think about how they can embrace some of that and step forward with that.
I think it would be helpful to have talking points for the committees. Maybe take a list of things here, like our example, list of the examples that you've been recording, George, just to help with thought starters, to say, here's some of the kinds of things we're talking about. What can you think of in your committee? It would just spark ideas, because sometimes people don't have ideas. And, I think it would help to, and for us all to be talking from the same 5 talking points.
Well, I'm certainly willing to do that. I'm also willing to maybe go back to Pastor's idea and pull out, maybe not the personal, all about George narratives, but rather some of the narratives that exist here in our book, and give you opportunities to quickly call them up that might be meaningful too.
Mhm. Excuse me, I need a bio break.
Okay,
Okay.
and I will do this one. Joy, I had a quick one from our existing action list. I saw that Sarah is now on the call committee, and that's great, and I'm sure she'll do good. Last time we had talked a little bit about maybe trying to engage Sarah as part of the Christian Education Committee. I guess I'm assuming that given that she's with the call committee now, that might overload Sarah a little bit. And so, or did you have that conversation with Sarah about the?
I did. I feel like I did ask her that. I'm trying to remember our conversation. She thought that let me think about my question. I wonder if I had the conversation with her about the committee itself. I know that I had conversation with her about actively participating on Sunday in Sunday school, and that she's definitely interested in.
Yeah, I remember that.
I think I forgot to, I don't know that I carried it to the committee itself, but I think you're right. Now that she's on the call committee, I'm not sure that she's too eager to be on two committees at church
There you
as,
go.
as
There
a
you go.
newly 15-year-old.
Right. So I was going to remove her from that.
Sounds good.
That sounds like you're agreeing with that.
Yeah.
So I'll put together some talking points and some example narratives where you can find them in the book. I won't recreate them there. Let's see. I do think, Joy, you said that you would take status of the advocate staffing, how we're doing.
I will, yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Do we want to do something with regard to maybe the Wilson website and then reaching out to the Wilson School District or Governor Mifflin for that matter as well?
I know the guy who heads Wilson's IT department. I can talk to him.
Okay, but
see.
I think what it is, if I were to paraphrase what I thought I heard Pastor say, and he can correct me if I'm wrong here, is there are many things that Advent may already be doing that maybe could be referred to on the Wilson website as a way to get some help. And so I think the first thing that we would need to do is make sure we have alignment on what those things are that we could offer some help on. And that is pretty close to what I think Pastor asked Kathy to do. So Pastor, did I capture your idea?
Yep.
And Kathy, would you be willing to start off that list?
I am. My thought is to almost ask in reverse, though, to ask the fire department and the school what kind of help they think is most needed. I actually almost see the question in reverse, because we can say, oh, we have prayer shawls, and that's not going to be a needed item, even though it's something we have on hand or could build up. My thought would be to ask the other way, what are the things you feel are most needed for your homeless students or for the fire families? That's just my thought.
And from that perspective, if we were to go that way, I'm not sure that the IT guy at Wilson is the right place to start. There might be a better resource than the technical.
Oh, was Wendy just going to ask him who that person might be?
For the website.
Yeah, yeah, ask the IT guy who we should talk to about.
I can ask him, or my brother-in-law is head of teaching and something up at Wilson. I could ask him if he has any idea who I could talk to.
What about guidance? Wouldn't guidance be the area?
That's usually, yeah, my friend just retired, but she would know who to contact. I could ask her. And just so we use the right term with them, they don't call it guidance anymore,
Well, yeah, I'm sorry.
but, school council, I can ask her who's in charge of all the counselors.
Well, they have the SAP, I know, the Student Assistant Program. But I don't know, whatever department that relates to would be, would you like to know, what are the things that you find yourself calling for a need for, and perhaps the church can help you?
So Sue, you're gonna find out who the right person is to talk to on that, and then I can give them a call?
Yeah, let me,
Okay, that sounds good.
And that was for Governor Mifflin, Sue?
no, I'm talking Wilson.
Okay. So Sue's gonna do that rather than Wendy?
Well, I'm just saying, my friend was a school counselor
Okay,
at Wilson. She retired last year, but she's still friends with everybody. So she could
Okay.
probably give us the name of the right person.
Pastor, I'll be glad to make up a list of what types of things we have kind of at the ready. But if you're going to reach out to the fire company and let them know we're around and we are interested to help people, if they give you any other items, it might be things that we could collect and get organized about.
Right, yeah. We're fairly
in the-
nimble.
In the spirit of working with our neighbors, West Lawn Church is our neighbor. I know specifically because I'm involved in the consignment sale that they keep a clothes closet for children's clothing
Oh.
stocked. So I feel like it's not in our best interest to try to duplicate or match their
Yeah,
efforts
no.
in that particular area. So I feel like almost having a conversation with West Lawn Church too, saying when someone calls you for fire, help, you're able to give them what, and we fill in the gaps around that, because we're just not, there's no reason to compete.
Yeah, you're right. When I did talk to West Lawn, to their office administrator, and he said they totally had clothing covered, that they did not need a thing for anybody in the family. So it might be in a bigger closet than what you originally heard of, because and maybe it was the original closet, plus they had quickly asked for donations, but they totally had clothing covered by the time I got to him. So that's why I didn't pursue clothing.
so was, Joy, were you suggesting that what we do is have a conversation with the United Methodist Church about those areas that might be gaps where we can help?
Yeah,
That's a good idea.
yeah. I feel like we used to do some things together a long time ago. And we don't necessarily, as a, neighboring churches, do much together anymore. I feel like there's no reason for us to.
Something happened with the Peach Festival when there was bad blood, I think. That's all I know.
Right, I remember the Peach Festival, and I don't know what happened. I have no idea, but I don't know. I feel like we extend an olive branch and try again.
Yeah, definitely.
There's one thing I recently found out about. I was pursuing some questions about how could we help the people at the Berks County Prison. And the chaplain directed me to West Lawn Methodist. They do a Christmas donations program for children and families of people who are incarcerated. And so that's something I was planning to contact them about anyway, to find out about that
Yeah.
ministry, like you said, how we could join in.
And Kathy, I think just back to it being a small world, I'm pretty sure that Doug Kramer, who was the ex-architect from the Rise Up and Build campaign, I
Uh-huh.
think he has taken a job as a chaplain at the prison.
Oh, okay.
So again, for what it's worth, I just offer that. Is there someone who is going to reach out to the United Methodist Church just to have that conversation?
Yeah, I'll
about-
do that, but it won't, maybe not right away, maybe
Sure.
before our next meeting.
Okay, well, it's about 28 minutes after the hour here, and I did promise that you would all have access to the fourth quarter, and I don't want to preclude that. The bad
Why?
news,
No one wants to watch, by the way. I've been getting the score on my phone.
yeah,
No one
it-
wants to tune in. Oh, dear.
yeah, yeah, it's now 31 zip.
Yeah, oh, dear.
But can I encourage us to maybe look at our calendars and suggest what might be a good time to talk about chapter 8?
Sure.
Um, Again, we'll step around council. How about either the 20th or the 27th of February, or is that too near? Do we want to?
Either one's fine with me.
I could do either.
Still checking. For now, good.
Either the 20th or the 27th of February?
Yeah.
Which Sunday is the Super Bowl?
Mm.
I think it's the next council meeting.
Oh, great. Okay, never mind.
It's the 13th.
Then we're out beyond the Super Bowl. That's good.
Yeah, so let's do the 27th, just on the off chance council picks the 20th for a rescheduled meeting.
Yeah.
So which day, the 27th at 2 PM?
Yeah, 27th at 2 PM and chapter 8. Okay. Does anybody have any parting comments before we break for today? Pastor, could you please dismiss us with a prayer?
The Lord be with you.
And also
Yeah.
with you.
Let's pray. We give you thanks, Lord God, that you have given us this time together. For when your people begin to consider your gifts among them, inspiration happens and your spirit flows. So, Lord God, in the days ahead, let our plans develop. Let our lives be blessed. And may our congregation get out and know what it is to be youthful in its ministry. We ask it in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you all for joining today, and I hope you have an enjoyable remainder of your Sunday.
Thanks, George.
You too.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye-bye now.